You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 107. This podcast is dedicated to Circus. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into this world. Hey friends, fans, and foes. I'm Shannon McKenna. I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. Just like every week, this is the part of the podcast where I tell you about how my podcast is funded, and that is through the amazing, generous donations of my Patreons on patreon.com/theartistathlete. Patreons of The Artist Athlete get episodes a whole day early, as well as some behind-the-scenes footage, special pictures of my cats, and plenty more, including a very own Artist Athlete sticker. Head to patreon.com/theartistathlete and sign up today. I know you've been thinking about it. I know that you've kept meaning to sign up to become a Patreon because you love this podcast. You just haven't gotten around to it yet. Let this be the time that you do get around to it. Patreon.com/theartistathlete. My guest today is Sabine von Rensburg, representing Zip-zap Circus. Zip-zap Circus is a social and professional circus that was founded in Cape Town in 1992, that's Cape Town, South Africa, to inspire and empower young people through the power of circus arts. Zip-zap's youth and outreach programs are free to all its beneficiaries, and youth are trained in circus arts, progressing through programs that provide them with opportunities to professionally perform locally and internationally. Zip-zap Circus promotes social cohesion, creates opportunities for youth, and unlocks their limitless potential while transferring life skills to them. Sabine von Rensburg is a Zip-zap alumni and the daughter of the founders and directors. Sabine left Zip-zap to study at the National Circus School of Montreal and returned during lockdown. And she is on the podcast today to talk about a really special video project that is happening this week. So listen to it, and at the end of the interview, I will give you all of the information you need to get your $6 ticket for this amazing event. Here's my interview with Sabine von Rensburg. Sabine, welcome to the Artist Athlete podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Can you tell the people at home who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. So, long story short, I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and my name is Sabine van Rensburg. I moved to Montreal about 6 years ago to pursue my career as a full-time artist, circus artist. And yeah, I graduated from the National Circus School of Montreal and have been basically touring and performing all over the world with Les Sept Doigts de la Main, which is a contemporary circus company called the Seven Fingers in English.
I don't know many South Africans who go through the program.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm the first one from South Africa to go through the Montreal program. My history is basically I was born into a circus family. So both my parents were circus artists.
Oh, cool. In South Africa. Nice.
Yeah. So my dad is South African and my mom is from Paris. And my dad left South Africa, I think, when he was 16 to tour and perform all over the world in much more traditional circus tents, really, living in a caravan, doing flying trapeze. And then he met my mother after he had an accident, actually. He broke his back, unfortunately. And then he met my mom and basically taught her how to perform and do circus. And then they performed for a couple of years together until they moved back to South Africa in 1990 and basically started Zip-zap Circus, which is a social nonprofit organization that puts, a huge emphasis on social circus and using circus as the medium to bridge the gaps between rich and poor, black and white.
So were they your first coaches growing up?
Oh yeah, definitely. They were the strictest coaches I've ever had.
What?
Yeah.
And you're an aerialist, right? You do tissue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love your work. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So dynamic.
Thank you.
Was that what you grew up doing? Was aerial?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of bounced around. Growing up in a circus school, you bounce around between disciplines.
Yeah, sure.
So I was a flyer when I was a baby because they could just toss me around. And then I gradually moved into trapeze and then to silks when I was maybe about 7 years old. And yeah, then I started performing. I think silks, my first silk show was about 10 years old.
And why did
Yeah.
you decide? I mean, coming from a circus family, I would imagine most circus people I know who are like generational, they generally like have work kind of set out for them. What made you want to go to the National Circus School in Montreal?
I think I wanted to rebel in a sense. You know, my dad was really traditional in his
Hmm.
way of thinking. He was like, you have to go put up a tent and work right away. And I was like, no, I'm going to go to this art school. And of course, I didn't rebel to the point of becoming a scientist or something completely off track, but
Hmm.
I really wanted to, further my education so that my job opportunities could be more so than what was just lined up for me. And I really wanted to, expand my knowledge to be able to bring it back to the circus school in South Africa.
Hmm.
Essentially, that's, I think, kind of become what is full circle for me right now is during this pandemic, my personal career has been put on hold. And I feel super fulfilled being able to come spend time here and just give all the knowledge that I've picked up over the past 6 years.
How is circus in Montreal different than in South Africa?
Firstly, it exists in Montreal here.
Well, yeah, and I
in
guess we should say like there's a very different type of circus that exists and you train
Absolutely.
in Montreal than you do in, or like in a more traditional sense. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, so firstly, Montreal, I think there's a lot more support for the arts in general from the government.
Hmm.
There's also this awareness and respect that it is an art form and, it is entertainment and art. Whereas here, it's really non-existent. There's a few corporate companies which have popped up in the last 2, maybe 5 years, but Zip-zap was really the beacon of circus in the Southern Hemisphere in Africa. Of course, in Tanzania and in more northern countries in Africa, there's a lot of acrobats and pyramid troops.
Yes.
But in terms of social circus schools and things like that, 30 years ago when Zip-zap started, we were really the only ones.
And I'm interested to know, I don't know if you probably absolutely know this. Your parents, why did they start a social circus? Why not start like a traditional circus of their own or, a company that could do galas and other things like that?
Yeah, good question. So when my dad came back, it was really at this really fragile point in history in South Africa because it was just as the era of apartheid was collapsing and Nelson Mandela had just been released from prison. And it was really this, brink. The whole society was in this shifting point of a lot of white people were leaving and a lot of other people had a lot of hope. And it was really restless. And my dad was just, shocked that this was the country he grew up in and it's now just
And
not what he
apartheid was
remembered.
the government sanctioned separation between um,
Exactly.
Black people and white people, basically
Yeah.
colonists who had come from Britain. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
up on my
Yeah.
South African history,
The
but
history. Yeah,
okay.
of course. So it was the basically the white Afrikaans people in power, and
Hmm.
they had passed laws to exactly segregate black and white. So marriage was illegal. There were different beaches, different parks, different benches, different schools, different living areas. Everything was separated,
Mm.
and it was just a really cruel time. And so when my parents came back, they said we need to make a difference. We have to do something to help. And Zip-zap was kind of the safe haven where kids from all walks of life, rich, poor, black and white, could really just come and play together for free of charge. So my parents would go into the townships and kind of bounce from school to school until they had enough, loyal kids to basically set up camp at a old broken down railway station. And they rigged ropes and trapezes and basically built a troupe from the ground up. And they did perform, and these kids are now, grown up and teaching younger ones at the moment.
That's so cool. And is that how you grew up as well? Were you just with Zip Zap, like training?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. My parents dragged me there every day when I was a kid, and then I would come every day after school when I was a teenager. Yeah, so I think I would have probably 50, brothers and sisters of all race and all gender. So it's really incredible.
That's awesome. And now that you're back, you've kind of come back to Montreal. What is your role in Zip Zap and what are you doing these days?
So right now because obviously due to COVID, we've put all the live performances on hold at Zip-zap. And so now with actually two other Montreal circus artists, Sam Renaud and Bryn Sholkoff, we are basically adapting one of their shows to film. So for the last 2 months, we have been shooting in all these crazy locations all over Cape Town, from the dunes to underwater to the mountains and the forest. It's really been an awesome, awesome journey. And yeah, we're basically producing an acrobatic art film
Whoa.
with
Is it
zero
just with
experience.
is it with like the kids in the social circus program?
Yeah. So we're basically focusing on just 8 of them,
Okay.
because most of the social programs actually had to be put on hold as well during the lockdown.
Sure.
So we have just our core performing group that have started back. And so it was with them that we were working, and we basically became a social bubble. So we were committed to each other for 2 months. We all signed a little contract being like, okay, these are our people. This is our tribe. We do not see anyone else. And, just to allow us to be able to touch and respect COVID regulations, basically.
Wait, how did all this like get started?
Yeah, so I was lucky. I basically got here the 2nd of January, and they had performed end of December, and they went back into a lockdown basically around Christmas time for New Year's. And then they started coming out of the lockdown in January, but with certain restrictions, obviously. So basically all schools had to be closed. Everything was online for school. So all our social programs with the really young kids were closed, but all the staff were still employed. And so that's when we kind of started creating. I think it was probably end of January. So we did all of February, all of March.
And that's January 2021.
Exactly.
Because it's been a full year now. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's insane.
This was a show that was developed not for Zip-zap.
Exactly. So Moya was a show created by my dad, actually, Brent van Rensburg, and I think it was originally 13 artists, and then we narrowed it down to 8 to basically adapt this show to film.
I've talked to other people, Francisco Cruz of the Seven Fingers, about kind of what it's like to video circus. I would love to hear what your experience was, like how you guys conceptualized it and created, because I think the problem or the interesting, I don't want to say problem because that sounds kind of negative, but the limitation, or that also sounds negative. What am I saying? The challenge? I don't know. But circus on video is very different than circus in real life. The experience is so different. So what choices did you make that accounted for that?
So, I mean, the hardest thing to capture is that raw energy that you feel when you watch this like death-defying act, right? So that feeling of like putting you on the edge of your seat and feeling the adrenaline. But the camera also allows for that magic ability to zoom in on things. So to see the hands gripping, or to see the person breathing, or the sweat dripping down their face. So it's like there's kind of this duality of the camera where maybe you lose some of the feeling, but you can capture it in other moments. So it was really just making a choice of how can we say what we want to say the best way possible, and just being really selective with our shots. And of course, the people that we're shooting are so rich with emotion, and they have so much to say. They've come from incredibly hard backgrounds, and I just think it translates super clearly on camera. So I was just feeling in a position of privilege to be able to capture this and almost be the mediator between the viewer and the performer.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said your dad wrote the show, and then you guys creating it. I mean, so often like it's impossible, especially I think in circus, to separate the performer from the material. So was there like a creation process? How much say did the performers have in what they were presenting?
Yeah, so definitely was challenging to find that happy medium between, how much we were allowed to alter, and them also trusting us that our decisions that we were making was really going to benefit them for the movie, because some of the choices obviously logistically don't make sense for a live performance, but for camera, it makes total sense. So there was a bit of back and forth.
Can you give an example of that? Like what would work on camera that doesn't work on live?
So for example, we wanted to frame things very specifically. So sometimes I would, not choreograph the people that were not in frame. And then I had people being like, well, what am I supposed to do right now? I was like, it's fine. We don't see you. And they were like, but I'm on stage. I'm like, no, you're not. You're on stage. But you're not in the camera. So there was those kind of moments of like maybe people feeling a little forgotten or something like that because we were having a more intimate shot. But as soon as we started getting footage developed and them seeing the direction we were going, everyone was really on board and really inspired. So yeah.
And what is the story of Moya?
So kind of the synopsis is we follow our protagonist, Trumpy is his nickname, Jacobus is his real name. And he is basically toughing it out in, the hustle and bustle of Cape Town, the city district, which is quite a rough town if you're, not in a safe neighborhood or not in a sheltered environment. And so we kind of follow him through his journey, walking through all these different landscapes and kind of coming across little bits and pieces of circus magic all through the city until he discovers the circus tent and enters the tent, and then his world kind of explodes from there. So that's the gist of it. It's very, very abstract. It's not quite a full like narrative storyboard type thing. It's really more, I think we're going more for like moods and feels than for a linear story.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. But this idea that like circus can really take you away to those places.
Exactly.
Can you describe some of the acts that are in the show?
Yeah, for sure. So we have, I think my favorite one is an act called BU, like the letter capital B, capital U. And this piece was actually created by the 4 performers themselves. They worked with a company called Trio Wise Fools, which is actually based in Brussels, I believe, via Zoom. They basically did choreography lessons. Yeah. And this act is basically their message of no matter what skin color, what background you come from, we're brothers. And so it's this really strong symbiotic relationship of 4 men basically telling their story. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful to watch. They're these kind of like earth warriors, and yeah, it's really, really breathtaking. So we cut between the super green lush forest and then the white sand dunes. And just in terms of imagery and power and story, it's just one of my favorite pieces.
Is it just like Trio Wiseful? They do triple trapeze. Yeah,
exactly. So Trio Wisefools do triple trap, except
I love that. They have a I love their work. I'm such a fan.
It's really awesome. So they actually helped these guys choreograph a floor acrobatic act. So BU is this kind of pyramid floor acrobatics dance choreography piece.
That's so cool. Did you bring in other kind of like educators or artists to help the other acts as well?
Yeah, we had Adele Blank, who's quite a famous South African ballet dancer. She helped us with the choreography for the opening and the finale acts. And the rest of it was a really good combination between Sam, Bryn, myself, and the artists. Like all the trapeze and aerial acts, that was me that worked on it. And Sam did most of the like hand-to-hand and acrobatics. It's really, having the potential to do a project like this has just made my creativity completely explode. Like the triple trapeze act in the film, we decided to film it in this kind of like really eerie blue lighting, and it totally made me think of water. And so I was like, let's just shoot this underwater. And so we took the 3 girls and made them do their sequences underwater. And so we're laying over those like underwater kind of floating images with the actual trapeze images, and it just looks awesome.
What? I'm trying to picture, like you hung the trapeze underwater?
No. They were just like floating. We basically, honestly, it was super DIY. We put a ladder across the pool and basically made the 2 girls hang upside down on the ladder and hold the other girl to kind of mimic the trapeze. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you started all this in January. What were you doing for the whole year before?
Yeah, so I was really super, super fortunate during the lockdown. I have, Bryn and Natasha and Jeremy, who are 2 other people that I work with, they have an incredible loft space in Montreal. So it's a really, really big open space that we laid down Mali, like dance floor. And we were basically dancing and doing acrobatics for 6 hours every day during the lockdown, just to move our bodies and feel good. And we kind of fell into a collective called people watching. It just happened super organically. And we ended up applying for a grant from the CELC, which is basically a government organization in Quebec. And they gave us a massive grant to just research and explore together, the four of us. So for the entire year, we were just creating content, acrobatic dance content, and sharing it online and, writing reports for them. But they basically paid us throughout the whole lockdown, which was incredible.
Holy crap. You had like the best setup of any circus artist I think I've talked to so far.
Yeah, I was really, really lucky. And it's so hard to see my friends, we all lost our jobs. And it shook me, definitely. But then to feel this like love and support with my little social bubble that we had created, it was just a really rich time to be, almost selfish in a really harsh environment. And I think we made some beautiful stuff from it.
Not to paint, I'm sure you had struggles. I'm sure it was very difficult. But to go from this kind of community that was funded, this community of creators that was like funded, and then fly back to South Africa and be like, oh, right, we're going to make this show, that's like super booming with creativity. And I'm curious to hear like what those experiences were like versus the work you were doing before, which was kind of like, obviously creating at the Seven Fingers is an experience. And at the school, did you feel a sense of freedom? Or
I have always been, quite independent in that no matter what structure or school system or job system that I'm in, I really find my groove very easily. Like I adapt super quick, and I'm always generally very happy in the environment that I'm in. So yeah, I definitely felt, creative and free in school and in Seven Fingers. I think I learned so much from working with the Seven Fingers, and just in the sense that they really give you a voice. And now, during the lockdown is I didn't really have to answer to anyone, but at least I knew my voice. I knew what I wanted to say. And I owe it to, my coaches at school and the Seven Fingers, who kind of allowed me to explore with that under, the safe guidance of their knowledge and experience. And of course they, molded the show and they had the ultimate say. But I think they really let you discover yourself as an artist at the same time as being an employee, which is quite rare.
Where does that come from for you? That sense of like joy or happiness? Yeah. Where does that come? Because I know people who can get very stressed out.
Yeah. I mean, I can get stressed out too. Yeah. It's really tough to say. I think I grew up in a country where I see people with a lot less than what I have. And so it made me always deeply, deeply grateful for what I do have. And if I get sucked into that cycle, of complaining and negativity, I just have to come here, or I just have to call someone who's here. And I just, it slaps me awake to be like, no, you have everything at your disposal, just keep at it. And it really, it's being here really boosts my positivity. It's insane. The people here are just electric with life and gratitude, and they literally never complain. It's incredible. And they have so much less access to sanitation and health and equipment and education. It's just, yeah.
So if the world were to reopen tomorrow, what would you do? Would you go back on tour?
Sure.
Would you?
I think I would love to go back on tour. Absolutely. Okay. I think I'm misperforming.
Yeah. Because how old are you? You're young.
24. Yeah. I'm definitely not done. Not yet.
No. And your parents, what are they doing now? Did they help with the video? Obviously, because your father wrote it.
Yeah, well, so actually they took an enormous step back from this project, which is super rare. They have a big issue with letting go. It's been 30 years that Zip-zap has been their baby. And I was totally expecting to, have to argue with them every night and tell them what I wanted and my vision. And actually they were like, here you go. This is all yours. Just do what you want to do. And that was so, so cool to see them trust me like that. And just, it was really, really awesome that they could just let go. And hopefully I make them proud and that they enjoy the final product, but we will see.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure that they will. And how is Zip-zap doing now? You said the core of 8 people are allowed to train. Are they reopening? What's the pandemic status in South Africa?
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite incredible. South Africa went through a very, very strict lockdown for a few months. And now basically everything is open. I mean, of course, protocol of sanitation, like sanitizing and masks, but bars are open, restaurants are open. You can have events up to 250 people. So there's no shows at the moment, but all the social circus programs have reopened. So I think it's Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. We have about 60 kids that come in for workshops. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we have a different program called The Hood that come in. And they're also about 35 kids. Yeah. So it's really, there's finally kids and life in our building, which is incredible to see. Yeah.
Do you teach any of those programs as well?
So I teach Dare to Dream, which is kind of equivalent to like a first year professional circus school.
Okay.
So they're there from Tuesday to Saturday, 9 to 5. And they are 13 of them, I believe. And they've kind of committed to, okay, I want to do circus as my career. Now I want to get in shape and get super good at my technique and choose my discipline. And so those are the people I'm working with. And they range from, I think, 18 years old to 25, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And what are the career opportunities for a circus artist in South Africa now?
Mm-hmm. Quite limited still, unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are a few corporate companies, like I said earlier, but honestly, the main thing would be either they would go touring around the world, which luckily Zip-zap has really incredible contacts to tour in Europe and in the States. And if not working for Zip-zap, then maybe they could work for other companies. A few of our graduates have worked for Cirque Phoenix in Paris, for Cirque du Soleil as well. And actually Circus Universal in the States as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard about it.
They're fantastic. I love Universal.
Yeah. It's
They're
crazy.
So
the energy there is so fun.
It's awesome.
I mean, some students move on to do things like that. But, the core value and belief of Zip-zap is that we just want to create young adults that contribute to society. So if they move on to be a school teacher or a taxi driver or a technician in the circus, whatever they choose, we just want to give them the values of, trust, teamwork, discipline, respect. And if they take that away, then we've done our job, whether they're artists and performers or not.
I've definitely heard this other places too. I interviewed a guy who was he's a marketing director for a Cambodian circus. And basically I interviewed him because he was the only person who spoke English in the place. But he talked about a similar thing where he was, and I think that this is kind of one of the core tenets that's so amazing about social circus, it's really about using the art form to empower.
Exactly.
How do you, as a performer and someone who's coming from somewhere like Montreal, kind of reconcile those two things? Because circus can be very frustrating. It can be incredibly annoying at times. It can be exhausting. How do you kind of reconcile that aspect of circus with the empowerment?
That's a tough question, to be honest. Yeah, I had a really, kind of debate with myself when I moved to Montreal, and like a struggle to find my balance between, this new wave for me of you're an artist now and you have to say something with your work and you need to basically have this internal struggle with yourself and versus, social circus just being this fun activity when I was a kid in South Africa, a safe space to play basically. And I think I finally found this balance that actually one fuels the other. And I think there is a lacking of, awareness about social circus in professional companies. I really believe that professional artists should spend their holidays, visiting the social circuses and or even during tour, every time I tour all over, I always pop into a school in whatever city I'm in just to check it out and say hi. Because a lot of these kids, if they just had access to professional schools and companies, perhaps they could become professionals as well. But there's this really thick wall and segregation between social circus and professional performing circus. And for me, I think it's just the avenues and the channels that lead the students there that is missing. Because social circus schools usually pop up and develop in areas that, have youth at risk or, disease or war. And usually in those places, art and entertainment is at the bottom of the list, So we have incredible talent here, And I would just love for them to, work for Seven Fingers or go to ENC, but majority of them don't have passports. They're HIV positive. They can't read or write. They barely speak English. So, there's all these other factors that it's not as simple as, okay, you're a talented person, now go work in a professional company. A lot of them come from addiction backgrounds or extreme violence and abuse. There's real heavy topics that need to be addressed before just becoming a performer and an artist. And that's what the social side of the social circus schools are.
I'm wondering how you and your parents and Zip-zap deal with the social side of it. I mean, obviously, to be a circus artist or to train in circus is a super, I mean, to me, it feels really straightforward because I do it. But like to coach circus, you learn the skills, you learn how to teach the skills. But as you say, there's all of these other issues that are brought to the table. Do you guys get any education in those realms as well? Any social supports?
Yeah. So we've been super fortunate to partner with MSF, which is Doctors Without Borders. And so they have provided an immense amount of help and education, especially when it comes to acknowledging your status, if you're HIV positive or not, and basically educating our youth on that. We also have an incredible person working with us for self-development. So she's kind of an alternative therapist who'll do like paint therapy or talk therapy with our students. We have access, to dentists and eye doctors, kids with rotten teeth, or previously we have like physiotherapists on call because a lot of the kids, perhaps from abuse or things, have, broken bones that haven't healed properly. It's just this, we really have incredible partners that we work with. So that's kind of, we lean on other people if it's beyond the expertise of Zip-zap training, as you say.
And where does the equipment come from? Where do you guys source all of that? Do you have,
Yeah, back in the day, we used to get actually equipment sent over from Cirque du Soleil's social project, a social kind of wing, which was called Cirque du Monde. I believe that Cirque du Monde is no longer running or has reduced in size. I'm not sure. Maybe you can correct me on that. But we don't get equipment anymore, is all I'm saying. Okay. But yeah, so usually in the early stages, they would send over, Olympic trampolines and carabiners, and it was incredible. We would really get immense amount of help, which was awesome. We still have those carabiners hanging. Probably outdated.
And if there's, and do you take, I mean, are you guys an organization that takes donations? If people who are listening to this want to send something somewhere, where can they do that?
So if you go to the Zip-zap website, you can totally, I believe it's like the bottom of the website, or if it's contact us, there's kind of like, you can either subscribe to a monthly donation or it can just be a once-off donation. Yeah, which is super appreciated because the government here is not very hands-on with social circus, unfortunately.
Yeah. And if someone wanted to come to, I mean, obviously probably not now because travel is still very much restricted, but assuming the world opens up again, if people want to come and volunteer to teach or to just be professionals want to come and participate in the social circus, what experience are they in for? What could you recommend to them?
You got to have some tough skin, but it's definitely a magical experience. We have a really, really awesome intern program. So the interns live in the residence, which is in the school, which is right in the center of the city. I mean, you can see Table Mountain from the school. It's really incredible. And it's super, super fulfilling. I always try to drag friends along from Montreal every time I visit home. I'm like, you guys have to come, you have to come. And every time they get like thrown into a show and they end up teaching for hours on end, but it's really, really an incredible experience. And just the connections you make with the students is, for me, the most gratifying part of it, circus aside.
Well, sweet. Sabine, is there anything else you could add to this amazing interview about Zip-zap or about the show that I didn't ask about?
I mean, no.
I don't want to leave any stone unturned.
The entire history in this amazing 30 minutes. But I would...
Girl, we covered the entire history of South Africa.
I mean, I would really, really just want to encourage people to, support. And if they do watch this film, basically the film is 100 Rand, which is equivalent to, I think, $5 or $6. It's really, really cheap streaming online. And yeah, just to like have these performers be watched by other performers halfway across the world is an experience in its own. And thanks to COVID, we finally have access to each other through all these different mediums of social media and videos online. So it would be really, really appreciated if, artists could pull through for each other and just support our youth over here.
Absolutely. I love that point you make. It does feel like there's this connectivity in the circus world that didn't really exist before the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oddly enough, it's like we've all stopped and looked around and been like, oh, all right, you're over there. Cool. I want to finish up this interview with my final question, which is, what advice would you give? Which is a silly question for you because you're 24. Well, the other thing I want to say is that this interview went really fast because you're so well spoken. I'm so impressed. You're just like, this is my answer. This is what we got. Here we are. So as you continue and have I'm sure you will have a vast and rich and eclectic career in the years ahead. But looking back, when you were just starting out in circus, what advice would you have given to yourself back then?
Wow. I think maybe be unapologetically yourself and just not try to fit the mold. I feel like we're always, every time you work with someone, it's like they're trying to cast this mold around you. And if it doesn't fit, just ignore it, just do your thing and hopefully what people will appreciate it, and even if it's fewer people that appreciate what you're doing, at least you really know that they care. And I think that would be the biggest thing. I feel like I spent so many years training my body in a way that I thought other people would appreciate instead of what I appreciated. And the last few years, finding that through school has been the most rewarding thing for me. It's just like actually finding what I like to do, because then you just go so much further than if you just force your body and your mind to think and move like what you expect other people to respond to.
That's such a good point. It's true. It is weird. Like, that is a presumption, I think, at the beginning, that if you just make yourself a certain way, you'll be accepted.
Exactly.
But really, it's the opposite. Amazing advice. Well, Sabine, thank you so much for coming on. I will include all the links to everything in the show notes.
That's so sweet.
Everywhere. Because I think this is so awesome what you guys are doing.
Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. That was my interview with Sabine van Rensburg of Zip-zap Circus. And today's episode was a little shorter because we're focusing a lot more on Moya and Zip-zap Circus than we were Sabine's life. Sabine is 24 years old and is going to have an amazing career. And 10 years from now, when she's lived her life and has stories to tell, she'll come back on the podcast and have an amazing interview, all of her own. But today, she's here representing Moya and Zip-zap Circus. And this circus video, unlike others that are around right now that have replays available, this one is only available for streaming for 2 days because of certain copyright laws in South Africa. So I want to help Sabine and all the performers, the artists of Zip-zap, unite them with the rest of us in the world, my listeners who can tune in. Go ahead, zip-zap.co.za is Zip-zap's website, but you can just go and Google Zip-zap Circus and they will certainly come up. Scroll down to Moya. A ticket is $6. April 23rd and 24th are the days. Go check out this amazing piece of art that these young people have made. It's so freaking cool. And show your support. Yeah, while you're on the site, maybe click around a little bit. Maybe hit the donate button. Maybe figure out how once the travel bans are lifted, you could get on a plane down to South Africa and hang out with Zip-zap Circus down in Cape Town. All those stars down there. What a time and a half. So go see Moya. I know I will be doing it. If you follow me on Instagram at _artist_athlete, I will also be providing a swipe up on my Instagram stories every day until the project ends, just to make sure that there's more awareness spread. Definitely share about it as well. I just think it's so cool. And like I said on the interview, actually as a circus community, I feel like during this pandemic, these times, definitely almost more connected than we usually are when we're off in our little projects, because we have to share, we have to make all of these resources available to each other on the internet. So what a fabulous opportunity. Again, zip-zap. You know what? I'm not going to say it. Just Google Zip-zap Circus or look at it in the show notes. If you want to follow Sabine, she is on Instagram at CircusBean. She does the aerial tissue and her work is fabulous. And for aerial training tips and inspiration, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at _artist_athlete. My Facebook is The Artist Athlete. My website is theartistathlete.com. And if you love what you're listening to, patreon.com/theartistathlete is the place to go to become a Patreon today. Thanks for tuning in. Talk at you next week, friends, fans, and foes. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi, my name is Noah and I do hand balancing. Hi, my name is Woody and I do Leo walk. Thank you for listening to the Artist Athlete podcast.
Hi, I'm Freya. You can hear my whole story in episode 50 of the Artist Athlete podcast, but I'm here to tell you about something else that I do. I'm a qualified health and nutrition coach. I help people with sleep and body confidence, among other things. You can see everything I have to offer at wildguidance.com or follow me on Instagram at wildguidance.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominique, a ground acrobat, trapeze artist, and coach, currently bringing Circus to the extremely cold but very beautiful Northern Ontario, Canada. Circus has changed my life and I'm so grateful to everyone in this community. Find me on Instagram at DomUpsideDown or my website domupsidedown.com.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and sling and rope by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.
Hey there, artists and athletes. This is Andy Smith, owner and artistic director at Saltaire Circus School in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And I want to thank you for contributing to the Artist Athlete podcast. If you ever find yourself down in Florida, come check us out. Whether you're an artist, athlete, or someone ordinary just looking to be extraordinary, we got a place for you.